Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
You've changed. I see my own reflection in the camera lens as I whisper these words. My voice trembles, betraying what I'm feeling inside. There's a flicker of red light on the top corner of the screen, reminding me that I'm recording. It's almost absurd that I'm starting a video with a phrase in Russian, but that's how it sounds in my head. Sharp, final. You have changed. I press record again to make sure I haven't messed it up. I'm still not used to doing all this video stuff. My hands are clammy, and I keep wiping them on my jeans, hoping the friction will calm my nerves. It doesn't. The red light blinks with a patient kind of cruelty, as if telling me to get on with it. But I can't. Not yet, because everything inside me is twisted into a knot. Rage, confusion, heartbreak. I never imagined I would start a personal chronicle, especially about my marriage and all the raw, ugly truths behind it. But here I am, filming this because sometimes you need proof. Proof of your own pain, your own story, so nobody can twist it later. I can't help thinking maybe it's too late for that. Maybe she's already twisted everything beyond repair. I switch off the camera for a moment. The silence in my garage is suffocating. My car stands behind me like a silent witness, coated in a thin layer of dust. I used to keep it spotless, but recently, everything's been neglected. Work, the house, myself. Even the small tasks feel too big now. It all started with her words in the kitchen. That evening is seared into my memory. I opened the door, and the smell of overcooked chicken drifted into my nostrils. For some reason, that smell made me uneasy. I remember stepping inside and seeing her, a woman I'd married years ago, standing at the stove with a wooden spoon, stirring and stirring. She didn't even look up when I entered. But the moment I sat down, that was it. She spun around and nearly flung the spoon into the sink. "You're worthless," she shouted. "You just take your salary and live here like a bag of potatoes." I should have felt anger, or maybe I should have tried to defend myself with some immediate retort, anything to show I wasn't just a punching bag. But all I managed was a clenched jaw. My hands tightened around the edge of the table. And then she repeated it, each word dripping with disgust. A bag of potatoes. Something inside me shattered right then. Instead of pushing back, I forced a single word through my teeth. Yes. She blinked, obviously waiting for more. When it didn't come, she dug deeper. "That's all you can say. Are you even listening to me? You come home late. You do nothing but mope around. And you think that's enough for me? You think I signed up for this?" I just stared at her. My mind was in overdrive, flipping through possible responses, each one sounding more pathetic than the last. So I said nothing. She slammed a cupboard, the sound ricocheting in my skull. I forced the corners of my mouth into something like a smile, but it felt twisted. Then, quietly, I said, "No." She looked furious. "No. That's all you've got?" I nodded. "Yes." My single-syllable answers seemed to enrage her even more. I could see her lips trembling. Maybe she was expecting me to lash out or hurl insults back. But I didn't want to feed that fire. Not then. So I stood, picked up my dinner plate, though I couldn't even imagine swallowing a bite, and carried it to the sink. Before leaving, I uttered something I never thought would come out of my mouth with such raw sarcasm. A simple thank you. That was it. That was my final stand of the night, and I walked straight to the garage. She was still yelling, her voice echoing off the kitchen walls. But I shut the garage door and let the silence swallow me. The next morning, I woke up before she did. I showered in cold water to jolt my senses, then dried my hair in front of the bathroom mirror. The reflection that stared back at me looked older, more tired, as though the lines on my face had grown deeper overnight. I thought about all the times she used to run her fingers through my hair while I shaved, all the times we'd stand here together, joking about something trivial. Now the entire house felt like a tomb. I went to work as usual, but something had snapped. I walked into my boss's office, my boss who's always been decent to me, and said, "I quit." He blinked as though he hadn't heard me right. "You quit, Dave? Is this about the promotion you didn't get? Because we can talk about." "No, I just quit. Thank you." He stared, searching for any sign I might be joking, or that this was some negotiation tactic. But I had nothing to negotiate. I felt strangely free. I packed up my few personal items, a photo of my kid, a mug with the Chicago skyline, some sticky notes that had become a second language to me, and walked out. That was how it all began. A meltdown, a single impulsive decision that would set the rest of my life on a collision course with the truth. I didn't tell her. I simply left the house early and came back in the afternoon, only to lock myself in the garage, rummaging for an old camera I remembered we had somewhere. We used it when our child was little, capturing birthdays and Halloween costumes. Now I needed it for something entirely different. But the real blow came not from her kitchen tirade, nor from my job resignation. It was the parent-teacher conference, a day I anticipated would be dull but necessary, just like all the other times. The usual speeches about test scores, classroom behavior, upcoming projects. Only this time, the teacher, Ms. Mayfield, looked at me with this strange pity. We were sitting in those tiny plastic chairs, my knees nearly to my chin, listening to her talk about some missing homework. Then she paused, adjusting her glasses. "I'm sorry," she said, her eyes flickering to my wife. "I thought you knew about." "Well, it's not really my place." I felt a chill that started in my gut and spread through my chest. My wife's expression was stone cold. She tried to cut in. "We should focus on our son's performance, Ms. Mayfield." But Ms. Mayfield already looked shaken. She bit her lip. "It's just that Mr. Hastings has been so involved. We thought you two had talked." I assumed. My wife's hand gripped the plastic table so hard I thought it might snap. I noticed her knuckles turning white. And right there, in that cramped classroom that smelled of crayons and disinfectant, something massive broke open. I realized Ms. Mayfield was referring to Andrew Hastings, the marketing guy I'd only met once at some school fundraiser. He must have spoken about our family, maybe let slip a few details that made Ms. Mayfield assume my wife and I were on the same page about something. It took me a moment to piece it together, but the moment clarity struck, it felt like the floor vanished under my feet. I wanted to stand up, ask a million questions. Instead, I just swallowed, forcing my voice to remain steady. Then I answered Ms. Mayfield in a single word. "No." That was all I had. My wife stiffened, a slight flush creeping up her neck. 1,000 unspoken words hung in the air. Ms. Mayfield stammered an apology, but by then, I was already on my feet, my hands trembling. I must have looked wild, because Ms. Mayfield reached out as if to steady me, but I pulled away. My voice cracked as I spoke to my wife. Is it him?" She stared back, her jaw set in defiance. She didn't say a word, but her eyes gave her away. An unmistakable flicker of guilt. Before I could utter another syllable, I walked out. The corridor was empty except for a few posters about recycling and a row of lockers. It felt surreal, like I was in some slow-motion scene. Footsteps echoing. My heart pounded so hard I heard it in my ears. I clenched my hands into fists to stop them from shaking. She caught up to me near the exit door, grabbing my shoulder. "Dave." "No," I whispered. Then I yanked the door open and left. I was afraid if I stayed a second longer, my voice would shatter or I'd break down, or worse, do something I'd regret. So I walked away. That was the day I realized the weight of her betrayal. Up until then, I'd thought we were just drifting apart, that it was a phase, that maybe I was failing at being the husband she wanted. But I never guessed she'd found someone else, especially not someone like him. Andrew Hastings, younger than me by a few years, more athletic, with that confident grin that probably lit up any room he walked into. Over the next days, I lived in a haze. She tried to talk to me, but each time I only answered with yes or no. It drove her insane. She threatened to file for separation if I didn't open up. She demanded explanations. But I couldn't bring myself to say more than those curt, single-syllable responses. I felt powerless. Words weren't enough to convey what was ripping me apart inside. I had quit my job, discovered her affair, and still had to wake up in the same house with her every day. While I stumbled through this daze, an idea began to form in my mind. Maybe it was born out of desperation, or maybe it was just me lashing out in the only way I knew how. The camera I'd found in the garage became an obsession. I started filming short clips around the house. The unmade bed, the bathroom mirror with smears of her makeup, the half-empty wine glasses she and Andrew must have shared when I was working late. That was the story I told myself anyway. Each shot felt like a piece of evidence, though I wasn't sure what crime I was documenting. My humiliation or her betrayal. When she finally came home late one evening, I had the camera rolling. She opened the front door, stepping inside with her shoes clutched in one hand. I sat in the dark living room, the camera on my lap. She froze when she saw the little red light. "What the hell, Dave?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Her hair was mussed, her lipstick slightly smudged. My mind instantly pictured Andrew's face against hers. My gut twisted. I said nothing, just kept filming. I wanted to see what she'd do. She took 2 steps closer. I saw the faint quiver in her lower lip. "Turn it off," she hissed, glancing around as if someone might be watching. Her fear or guilt was palpable, a sour tension in the air. I didn't respond. Eventually, she stalked past me, flicking on a lamp. The sudden brightness made me squint through the viewfinder. She set her shoes down loudly, then turned back to me. "Stop with this creepy silent act. If you have something to say, say it." She waited, arms folded defensively over her chest. I lowered the camera for a moment. "No," I said quietly. Her eyes flashed. "No. That's it. You can't keep living like this, Dave." "Yes," I replied. Then I lifted the camera again. I wanted to record her face, how the veins in her neck tensed, how her eyes glistened with angry tears. Because that was my truth. She had changed, and I wanted proof. This pattern repeated for days. Me filming her yelling, me refusing to speak more than a word or two. I felt half crazy, but also like the only thing anchoring me was collecting these pieces of our broken marriage on film. The more I recorded, the more I felt an odd sense of purpose. I wasn't just a worthless bag of potatoes. I was capturing her for who she really was now. Someone who betrayed me, who carried secrets in the night, who pretended everything was normal in the daylight. But the true confrontation came when I followed her one afternoon. I'd never thought I'd stoop to that level, secretly tailing my own wife. But the pain inside me overshadowed any pride I had left. She said she was going to meet a friend for coffee. I trailed behind in my car, heart pounding, palms slick on the steering wheel. It wasn't a coffee shop. It was a small condo building across town, in a neighborhood neither of us had any business being in. I waited 5 minutes, maybe 10, building up the nerve to confirm what Ms. Mayfield had hinted at. Then I grabbed the camera from the passenger seat and slipped out onto the sidewalk, trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. Each step toward that building felt like stepping onto a landmine that I knew would explode. But I kept going. I found the door cracked open, a wedge stuck to keep it from locking. My heart hammered wildly. It was like the entire world had narrowed to this single corridor. I crept up the stairs, the cheap carpeting muffling my footsteps, until I heard voices. Her voice. And a man's. Andrew's. I had no plan, just the camera in my shaking hands and a swirl of adrenaline in my veins. Slowly, I approached the door at the end of the hallway. It was ajar, not by much, but enough for me to see a sliver of living room. Enough to see my wife, her hair draping over her shoulders, locked in a tight embrace with him. They were kissing, her arms around his neck, his hands on her waist. The kind of kiss we used to share in better days. My entire body clenched, like I'd been punched in the stomach. I felt an overwhelming urge to burst in, to smash the camera, to drag him by the collar and throw him down the stairs. 1,000 violent thoughts soared through my head. But instead, I lifted the camera and pressed record. Through the small gap, I caught glimpses of them. The desire on her face, the urgency of his hands roaming over her. Their clothes slowly shifting, the heat in the room so thick it was suffocating. I knew I shouldn't be watching, but I couldn't look away. I felt sick, betrayed, yet compelled to capture every second. I wanted proof, raw and unmistakable proof of what she had done. My throat tightened, and tears stung my eyes. I fought them back fiercely, because I refused to cry. Men don't cry, I told myself. Men don't let themselves break in front of betrayal. Her quiet gasp of pleasure was like a knife to my gut. I forced myself to remain utterly silent, though my entire chest burned with a primal rage. The weight of my heartbreak pressed down on me until I wanted to scream or vomit or both. Finally, I'd had enough. I pulled back, stopping the recording, and crept downstairs. Outside, I stumbled onto the sidewalk and braced myself against a lamppost. I stood there, panting, the cold Chicago wind whipping my jacket. My legs felt weak, and I had to fight the urge to sink to my knees. One word kept pounding in my skull. Why? Why had she chosen him? Was it something I did or didn't do? Or was it simply that she'd grown bored? My mind looped on the question until the pain turned into something else, an icy resolve. I got back in my car, laid the camera on the seat, and drove straight home. My hands were steady on the wheel now, surprisingly calm, because I knew what I would do next. I was done letting her tear me down with words. I'd show the world her reality. No more illusions, no more facades. Let people see exactly who she was and how she'd changed. That night, she didn't come home until late again. By then, I was in our makeshift studio, the guest room I'd converted into a labyrinth of tripods, screens, and a battered laptop. I was editing the footage I'd captured, along with the countless scenes from our house. Every clip told a story, how our marriage had died, and how she had become a stranger to me. I spliced in silent shots of our wedding photos on the mantel, our child's drawings on the fridge, the shadows in our bedroom. And in between, I inserted the brief, damning frames of her with Andrew, though I kept the graphic parts minimal. I wanted it to be clear, but not cheap. This was my documentary, my statement of truth. She found me hunched over the laptop in the dim light. I could smell the cheap wine on her breath before she spoke. "What are you doing, Dave?" Her voice was low, suspicious. I didn't turn around. "Editing." "Editing what?" "No." She exhaled sharply, stepping forward. I felt her hand on my shoulder, trembling. Maybe it was anger, maybe fear. "Show me," she demanded. My hand hovered over the mouse. I hesitated, then hit pause on the playback. On the screen, her face filled the frame. Eyes half closed in a kiss she shared with Andrew. She froze when she saw it. Her hand snapped away from me, as if she'd been burned. "Oh my God," she breathed. Her voice cracked. You followed me." "Yes." The color drained from her cheeks. "This is insane, Dave." "You're insane." I shook my head, turning slowly to meet her gaze. For once, I didn't hide the raw fury in my eyes. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "No." She looked like she might slap me, or scream, or burst into tears. Instead, she just stood there, chest heaving, tears welling at the corners of her eyes. "You can't do this," she finally said. "You can't." "Yes," I cut in, my tone final. All at once, she launched into desperate pleas and threats, telling me I'd ruin our family, I'd destroy her reputation, I'd traumatize our child, that I needed therapy. She said she'd call the police if I tried to share any of these videos. Through it all, I simply shook my head, or said no. My refusal to engage made her break down completely. She sank to the floor, sobbing in fury and fear. I stood over her, gripping the back of my chair, nails digging into the upholstery so hard I thought it would tear. I was done being the quiet, loyal husband who took every criticism. Something fundamental had broken in me, and that version of me was gone. All that remained was a man who'd been pushed past his limit. I uploaded the final edits of the documentary onto my laptop, naming each episode carefully. In the first, I introduced us as a happy couple, using older footage I'd shot years ago. In the next episodes, I highlighted the gradual shift, her late nights, her escalating anger at me, the ways she pulled away. Each clip was hammered in with quiet sequences of me alone, sitting in our living room, cooking in the kitchen, tidying up her mess, and near the end, I placed the shocking revelation, her returning late at night, her humiliating insults, her betrayal with Andrew. Short but unmistakable footage, grainy but real. When it was complete, I uploaded it onto a private server, not yet public, just to keep it safe. My heart thumped in my chest, like a war drum. If I clicked one button, the entire world could see it. She'd be exposed, every lie, every secret laid bare. Yet for a moment, I hesitated. I knew that once I did this, there was no going back. She must have sensed my resolve, because she leaped to her feet, voice trembling. "Dave, please, don't." Her voice cut off, replaced by a ragged sob. "Think about our child. Think about our life. We can handle this a different way." I looked at her, noticing how even in her tears, she looked different from the woman I married. That woman had once loved me, comforted me. This woman wore guilt and anger like a second skin. My chest tightened as I thought of the child we share, but then I remembered the footage of her and Andrew, the years she'd spent turning cold and distant, the contempt in her voice calling me worthless. Had she thought about our child then? So I clicked publish, the final blow. The digital world responded instantly with a swirl of uploading progress bars and confirmation messages. She lunged at me, nails raking my forearm, but I pushed her away gently, stepping aside. "What did you do?" she shrieked, panic twisting her features. "What did you do?" I just whispered, "Yes." She stumbled backward, eyes wild. I left her there in the hallway, ignoring her frantic questions, ignoring the throbbing in my arm where she'd clawed me. I walked out of the house, out into the night. The wind cut through my jacket, but I barely felt it. My phone buzzed with notifications, friends, coworkers, acquaintances who'd somehow come across the video or heard about it. I didn't answer any calls. I wanted only silence. I drove without a destination, my thoughts shifting from rage to sorrow, and back again. The city lights blurred around me, distant and cold. After an hour, I pulled over near the old waterfront where we'd once spent a romantic weekend. I sat there, parked by the pier, letting the memory swirl in my mind, the way she laughed in the sunlight, how we'd raced each other barefoot on the sand. I'd loved her so deeply. Even after everything, a part of me ached with that old devotion. But it was drowned now by betrayal so profound it changed who I was. For a moment, I thought about taking the video down, about trying to repair what was left of us. But that notion died as soon as it was born. We were past that. The truth was out, and whatever happened next would happen. I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the car seat, listening to my own ragged breathing. In the stillness, I whispered, "Men don't cry." Yet tears forced their way through anyway, silent, scalding lines down my cheeks. I let them come, let the heartbreak wash over me, until I was empty. Then I wiped my face roughly, refusing to let the sadness define me anymore. I was done with that. I started the car and headed back to the house. If she was still there, fine. If she wasn't, also fine. I decided that from now on, I'd speak the truth even if it was just in single words. When I got home, she was gone. I walked into the living room, and her coat was missing from the rack. A suitcase lay open, half the clothes gone. I stared at it for a long moment, my chest hollow. I made my way through the house, flicking on lights. In our bedroom, I found a note scribbled on a scrap of paper. "You've destroyed everything. This is war." I swallowed hard, letting her words seep in. Maybe it was war, but I was too weary to feel any triumph. I just sank onto the bed, picked up the note, and read it over and over. Finally, I set it aside and headed to the guest room, my makeshift studio. My laptop was still open, the upload finished. The screen displayed the videos, a testament to my anger and her betrayal. Sometime near dawn, I dozed off in the chair. I must have slept only a couple of hours because I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly. Messages poured in, some from family members, some from mutual friends, a few from unknown numbers. I glimpsed bits and pieces, shock, condemnation, pity. My phone rang, and the caller ID showed Andrew's name. I let it ring, but he kept calling. On the fourth try, I answered. "Yes," I muttered, voice still thick with sleep. His voice practically crackled with fury. "You piece of. Do you think you can just ruin her life like that? Ruin my life? No. Then what the hell do you call this? That video is out there, Dave. People at my company have seen it. My boss called me in the middle of the night. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I listened to his angry tirade, my free hand clenching into a fist. I pictured him with that confident smirk he always wore, but it must have vanished now. Maybe it was twisted with anxiety, the same sense of dread I'd been living with for weeks. His rant continued. "She doesn't deserve this. You're the one who couldn't keep her happy, so don't you dare." "Yes," I said simply, cutting him off. He paused, thrown by my single-syllable response. "What the?" "Yes," I repeated, letting the finality of it settle. He exploded into another fit of words. I hung up. The phone immediately rang again. I turned it off. "War," she'd said. Fine. Let them rage. I had no more to say. The next week was a blur. My child stayed with my sister, who flew in from out of state when she heard the news. She didn't confront me directly, but her disappointed eyes said plenty. I spent my days locked in the house, ignoring the outside world. The documentary series, which I'd posted in chapters, racked up views faster than I anticipated. I never intended it to go viral, but the rawness of it, our real faces, real names, real heartbreak, proved irresistible to people looking for scandal. Headlines popped up about the betrayed husband exposing cheating wife. The phone never stopped buzzing. I disconnected our landline. During that time, I watched the footage over and over, as if trying to extract some meaning from it. I studied her face, the small changes in her expressions, searching for the moment she decided I wasn't enough. Searching for the instant she gave herself to Andrew. I saw none of that. Just a gradual fade of warmth in her eyes. A slow, inevitable drift. Then came the day I got a knock on the door. 2 uniformed officers. My heart lurched, but I let them in. They were polite, awkwardly so, as they explained they had received a complaint. She was pressing charges related to harassment and invasion of privacy. I nodded, numb. The officers looked around, no doubt noticing the camera equipment. One of them asked me a few standard questions. I answered only in yes or no. Finally, he sighed and said they'd be in touch. For a few minutes after they left, I just stood by the window, staring at the spot where their patrol car had been. The weight of it all pressed down on me. I knew I could be facing legal trouble, but in a twisted sense, I didn't care. She had flung me into a black hole of self-doubt and emotional devastation. My recordings were my lifeline, the only way I knew to fight back. That same night, I received an email, an official letter from her lawyer, stating that I needed to remove the videos and issue a public apology. Or else. I read it, closed my laptop, and sat in the darkness. The house groaned with emptiness, as though mocking me. I heard my own breath, felt the ache in my chest that never left. The next morning, I did the opposite of what they demanded. I shared a link to the videos with a few more people who'd asked for it, acquaintances who wanted the real story. Let them see. Now, as the dust begins to settle, I'm still filming. I've turned the camera on myself more often, addressing it directly, capturing my raw confessions. I talk about how I feel worthless, how I tried to be the man of the house, how I believed in marriage and family. My voice cracks sometimes. Tears threaten to surface, but I push them back. Men don't cry, I tell myself. But in that lens, I can't lie. The agony is plain on my face. Strangely, people online have responded. Some call me a monster, some call me a victim. Others treat me like a folk hero for standing up to a cheater. I don't know which side is right. I do know that the man I was is gone. Every day, I grapple with the guilt of exposing her so publicly. But then I remember the image of her in Andrew's arms, the blatant disregard for our vows, and that guilt turns cold. She wanted a new life. She got it. And I have my truth on camera. One evening, Andrew tries calling me again. I answer on the second ring, my voice listless. Yes. He hisses into the phone. I'm going to destroy you if you don't remove that video, Dave. Remove it. Now. No. His breathing is ragged. You can't keep humiliating her like this. My job. My reputation. Yes, I say, feeling a rush of bitterness. For a second, I imagine him pacing in his expensive condo, cursing me, cursing the day he met my wife. Good. Let him. This is the bed they made. You're pathetic, he spits. No wonder she left you. His words echo in my head. No wonder. I grip the phone tighter, my jaw clenching, until I taste blood from biting my lip. Then I press end. Let him talk to a deadline. A day later, her lawyer calls again. Another threat. More talk of lawsuits. I set the phone aside in the middle of his monologue, letting him drone on to empty air. Eventually, the screen goes dark. Week by week, the initial surge of the video scandal starts to subside. The internet moves on quickly, new controversies replacing old ones. I find I can breathe a little more easily, though I'm left with the fallout. No job, a shattered marriage, and a kid who's living with my sister for the foreseeable future. When I pass a mirror, I hardly recognize the man staring back, my hair disheveled, eyes sunken, stubble crossing my jaw. In that reflection, though, I see a kind of grim determination. There's a clarity in my anger, a sense of purpose I never had when I was just going to the office and quietly rotting behind a desk. Now I know what I'm capable of. I'll stand up for myself, even if I have to burn my life down to do it. Early one morning, I get a text from my wife. It's short, almost polite. I want to talk. Alone. In person. Please. No. That's my first instinct. But then, for the sake of closure, I reply. Yes. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. House. The next day, I wait in the living room, perched on the edge of the couch. She arrives right on time, letting herself in with her key. For a moment, neither of us speaks. The tension is so thick it could choke us both. Her eyes sweep the room, noticing how different it looks without her things. Finally, she sits on a chair opposite me, crossing her legs. She looks exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun. How are you? She asks, voice subdued. My mouth opens, but only a slight exhale comes out. She presses her lips together, waiting. Then she tries again. I'm sorry. I can't believe we ended up here. But can we not drag this out in front of the whole world? Let's handle it like adults, talk about custody, about dividing assets. Yes, I interrupt quietly. She nods, relieved. So you'll take the videos down? No. Her face falls. Dave, come on. Enough is enough. People have watched them. Your point is made. You exposed me. You told everyone how I betrayed you. I can't walk down the street without feeling like I'm being judged. I watch her carefully. Part of me pities the tear gathering at the corner of her eye. Part of me wants to hold her, to comfort her the way I used to. But another part, stronger, remembers the lumps in my throat as I filmed her infidelity, so I keep my expression firm. No, she exhales in a ragged sigh, tears beginning to streak her cheeks. You're so cruel now. So different. I want to yell that she's the one who changed, that her betrayal twisted me into what I am. But instead, I just stare. My hand rests on my knee, fingers digging into the denim. A heavy pause settles between us. She whites her cheeks. Fine. So what's next? I let the silence stretch, searching for any flicker of love left in me. Nothing. There's only a hollow space. Divorce, I manage to say. Then, yes. She draws a shaky breath, nodding. That's what I thought. She stands, smoothing her skirt, trying to compose herself. If that's how it has to be, then let's do it quickly. I won't fight you on any of the property. Just, let's keep it civil for our child's sake. She waits for me to respond. But I have no words to offer her, only the flicker of a memory. Her kissing Andrew, the final nail in our coffin. She turns to leave, and I watch her go, my heart a numb stone. Over the following weeks, we go through the motions of divorce proceedings. Lawyers talk, papers are signed. She tries to text me about random details. Bank accounts, furniture, what will become of the house. Sometimes I answer in a single word, yes or no. Sometimes I ignore her entirely. Meanwhile, I search for a new job, anything to sustain me now that I have no steady income. My phone interview answers are dull, haunted. The managers sense my lack of enthusiasm. Rejection after rejection piles up. I'm living off my savings, which won't last forever. In the evenings, I keep filming. Not her anymore. She doesn't come around much, just me. I rant in front of the camera or stare into it silently. I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm addicted to documenting my pain, or maybe it's a final act of therapy. But it doesn't make me feel better. It just reminds me that I once had a life worth filming. Now I only have scraps. One afternoon, I drive to see my child at my sister's. The kid runs up to me, hugging me tight. That warmth is the first genuine solace I've felt in weeks. My sister stands by, arms folded, giving me a sympathetic glance. She doesn't mention the scandal or the videos, and I'm grateful. We spend a few hours together, playing board games, talking about school. For that brief slice of time, I feel almost normal again. As I'm leaving, my sister follows me outside. Dave, she says quietly, I know you're hurting, but think about your kid. Don't let all this bitterness take over your life. They need a father who's stable, present. I meet her gaze and try to speak, but only manage a nod. She hugs me, and it almost breaks my composure. Take care, she whispers. Then I go. That night, alone in my bed, her words churn in my mind. Am I letting the bitterness define me? Yes, probably. Yet every time I think of backing down, I remember the smug look on Andrew's face, the heartbreak in that hallway at school, the desperate camera angles capturing her betrayal. It's like a weight chained to my chest, and I don't know how to be free of it except by pushing forward with this new identity. The man who got even. Another few weeks crawl by. Then, one morning, an envelope arrives. Inside it is a letter from my wife's lawyer, her official response to finalize the divorce. And with it, a typed note from her, short and to the point. I will not contest custody. Our child can stay with you every weekend and on holidays. Thank you for not cutting me off entirely. She signs her name at the bottom in a shaky scrawl. My first instinct is to tear the note to shreds. But I just stare at it, feeling the hollow ache in my chest deepen. Then I file it away with the other documents. So this is how marriages end now, through legal forms and curt notes. I walk to the garage and turn on the camera. The old battered lens stares back at me like an old friend. I press record and begin speaking. My voice is low, hoarse. I talk about the compromise, about the child we share, about the emptiness that follows. My voice shakes, but I keep going, letting my sorrow bleed out. We used to love each other, I tell the camera. And now we're strangers. Maybe that's what hurts most. Not the cheating, not the insults, but the fact that we used to share a future. Now that future is gone. My throat closes up. I gasp for air, forcing back tears. We used to be unstoppable. She believed in me, or at least I thought she did. Now it's just me, alone with these cameras. I hear my voice crack, a tiny whimper escaping. Angrily, I slam the laptop closed, ending the recording. No, I won't let myself cry on camera. Men don't cry, or so we're told. By the time the court date for our divorce is set, months have passed since the day I caught her with Andrew. The scandal about my videos has mostly died down, overshadowed by new drama on the internet. I still keep them online, unrepentant. In quiet moments, I question whether that's right. But then I remember how she spat, "You're worthless," and all that guilt turns to steel in my veins. Our hearing is brief. No major disputes, nothing dramatic. When the judge bangs the gavel, I feel a strange emptiness wash over me. She glances at me from across the room, eyes red. I avert my gaze. Yes or no? That's all we've had between us for months. There's nothing left to say. Afterwards, she leaves with her lawyer. I wander out onto the courthouse steps, leaning against a pillar. The sky is overcast, the wind cold. For a moment, I close my eyes and listen to the city hum. The question flickers in my mind. What now? I've gotten my revenge. I've shown the world who she is, but at what cost? I hear a familiar voice behind me. My sister. She rests a hand on my shoulder. It's done, she says gently. Yes, I whisper, my voice barely audible. She squeezes my shoulder and steps away, letting me stand there alone, processing. The city's noises fade in and out. I wonder if Andrew is somewhere cursing me, or if he's moved on, found another woman to chase. My ex-wife is probably riding in a cab, hugging her purse, eyes wet. I have no illusions that she still loves me. But I know a part of her must remember when things were good. I push off the pillar, my legs stiff. The finality of this moment weighs on me, but I also sense an odd kind of relief. I might be battered, but I'm free. I've told my truth. I've shown her real face to the world. The same world that once believed we were a perfect couple. Now they know the ugliness beneath the surface. Driving home, I pass by the old waterfront. On an impulse, I pull over. The gray waves slap against the shore, gulls crying overhead. I park and walk down to the water. The wind whips my jacket. I stand there, staring out at the choppy lake, remembering the day we walked here together, laughing at the cold spray. Then I notice my reflection in the water, flickering, broken by the ripples. It feels like a metaphor for my life, but I can't muster a bitter grin. Instead, I bend down and scoop up a handful of water, letting the icy chill numb my fingers. I watch the droplets slip through my hands and vanish into the lake. Gone, just like my marriage. In the distance, a boat horn blares. The sound echoes across the water, lonely and resonant. I inhale deeply, letting the cold air burn my lungs. For the first time in ages, I speak a full sentence, just to myself, but it feels like a proclamation. She changed, and so did I. My voice quivers. But I stand there, letting those words settle into the wind, letting the swirling gray sky swallow my pain. I realize that in a twisted way, it's over. The heartbreak, the revenge, the public exposure, they all reached their conclusion in that courtroom. I'm left with the aftermath. A man trying to piece his life together. Slowly, I walk back to my car. The engine starts with a shudder. As I pull away, I catch one last glimpse of the water. My chest feels bruised, but I sense a faint glimmer of something else. Maybe hope, or maybe just exhaustion. When I get home, I step into the garage. The camera and laptop still lie on the workbench. For a moment, I think about hitting delete on all those videos, wiping the slate clean. But I can't bring myself to do it. Those videos are my testament, my record of what happened, my raw, unfiltered truth. Some part of me needs it to remain there, even if I never watch it again. I pull up a folding chair and sit in front of the camera. With a trembling hand, I press record. The red light winks. I clear my throat, forcing the lump in my chest to loosen. Then I begin talking, more than just yes or no. I speak about the end of the marriage, about the moment the judge declared it finished, about the cold wind by the water. My voice is unsteady, but I keep going, bearing the part of me that's still raw and wounded. It's over, I say to the camera, and to myself. She's gone. And I'm still here. I don't know if this is a victory or just an aftermath. I pause, letting out a shaky exhale. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes. The old reflex to swallow them down rears up. But I let one tear escape, rolling down my cheek. I brush it away with the back of my hand, almost angrily. Men aren't supposed to cry. I mutter, half laughing at the irony. But we do. We just do it when nobody's watching. Or maybe in front of a camera we control. I stare into the lens, seeing my reflection in it, older than I was, wearing every scar. Yes, I whisper, acknowledging the pain. Then I switch off the recording. I sit in the silence, letting the dim garage envelop me. At some point, I realize the only way forward is to rebuild, find a new job, reclaim my role as a father, let the bitterness slowly fade. The revenge is complete. The final footage is posted. She's gone. Andrew's out there, somewhere, licking his wounds. And me. Maybe I'm still worthless by her standards. But I'm done living by them. For the first time in a long time, I take a deep breath that doesn't hurt. I picture my child's face, the bright eyes and trusting smile. And that gives me a surge of determination. I will be better, for him. Even if that means I stumble a few more times along the way. Leaving the garage, I flip off the overhead light. It's time to sleep. Time to let that old life die, along with all the illusions and heartache. Tomorrow, I'll wake up to a new day, still scared, still uncertain, but freed from the lies. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough of a start for a man like me. I pause at the doorway, my hand on the switch. For the briefest second, I remember her face when she told me I was living like a bag of potatoes. The sting of that insult flares in my chest. Then I let it go. With a flick, the light goes out, leaving me in darkness. I step into the house, closing the garage door behind me. No, I'm not worthless. I'm just a man who loved and lost, who tasted betrayal and gave it back. A man who made 1,000 mistakes in a whirlwind of pain, but at least I owned them. This is my truth, raw and imperfect, but mine. And though my voice still quivers, though my hands still tremble when I think of her face in Andrew's arms, I am moving on. I have to. Because the moment you stop is the moment you let the betrayal win. And I refuse to let that happen. So I walk forward, one step at a time, into the quiet hallway. Tomorrow, I begin whatever comes next. Without her, without illusions, but with at least one certainty. I survived. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough of a victory for one lifetime.